The Deep Space Observatory had been quiet for most of the week, the hum of machinery the only sound that filled the halls. For years, humans had been listening to the stars, picking up faint signals from distant worlds. Most of the time, it was just random noise, solar winds, cosmic radiation, or signals bouncing around planets. But this time was different. Late one night, while monitoring the Andromeda Rim, the observatory team noticed something strange. A pattern appeared on the screen, a series of signals that seemed deliberate, almost pleading. The data flowed in bursts, carrying a sense of urgency that was impossible to ignore. It wasn't like anything they had seen before. The sequence repeated itself, as if the sender was desperate to be understood. No other civilization had responded. The message seemed simple to some, but layered with fear and confusion. Across the galaxy, countless worlds received the signal and did nothing. They didn't answer, didn't intervene, and didn't even try to locate the source. Every planet had its own rules, its own fears. Most had judged the sender too weak, too fragile, not worth the trouble. The signal came from a planet called Alarian. It had once been a thriving world, its cities shining with the glow of technology and culture. But now it was dying. Natural disasters, wars, and collapsing infrastructure had brought it to its knees. Its inhabitants sent a call for help, their civilization teetering on the edge of extinction. They didn't know who might respond, only that someone had to. Earth was far away from Alarian, on the outer edges of explored space, and humanity had not yet gained a significant reputation among galactic civilizations. To many advanced species, humans were dangerous, unpredictable, and unusual. Earth itself was called a death world because its environments were harsh and its creatures even harsher. Aliens whispered stories of how humans survived earthquakes, storms, floods, and deadly animals, with a toughness no other species could match. But humans didn't see it as danger. They saw it as life, as something to endure and overcome. The team at the observatory debated for hours. Some argued that responding could be dangerous. What if it was a trap? What if the signal came from a species capable of destruction? Others felt differently. Humanity had always been curious, always willing to take risks for knowledge and compassion. Ignoring a civilization in need went against everything humans believed. Finally, a decision was made. A small, skilled team would journey to Alarian. It wasn't just scientists. They brought engineers, medics, and a few explorers trained for the worst conditions. They weren't expecting heroes or accolades. They were expecting a challenge. They were ready to face a world that most had long abandoned. As the team prepared, the planet Earth seemed quiet and ordinary. Cities buzzed with life, unaware that humans were about to step into a story that would change the way the galaxy saw them. Spacecraft were loaded with equipment, medicine, and supplies. Every tool, every module was checked multiple times. The team trained for extreme weather, unstable structures, and unknown threats. Humanity's strength wasn't in having perfect technology. It was in being adaptable, in thinking quickly when everything went wrong. When the ship finally left orbit, it was a quiet, tense launch. The crew watched Earth shrink behind them, the blue oceans fading into black space. There were no cheering crowds, no dramatic goodbyes. Just the hum of the engines, the constant blinking of instruments, and the thought of a world waiting for help. The journey through space was long. Days turned into nights in the endless void. Each member of the crew felt the weight of the mission differently. Some focused on the science, scanning the stars and monitoring the ship. Others thought about the Alarians, their culture, their cities, their fears. What would they look like? How would they react to humans? Would they even understand that help was coming? When the ship finally approached Alarian, the view was nothing like the holograms the humans had studied. The planet was scarred, mountains were cracked, rivers had dried or flooded uncontrollably, and cities lay in ruins. Smoke rose from multiple locations, and the atmosphere carried a faint, heavy glow. The team's hearts sank. This was worse than they had imagined. Then came the first sign of life. Figures moved among the rubble, pale and thin, dressed in clothing designed for protection against the harsh environment. They watched the humans cautiously, unsure if they were friend or foe. Their eyes carried disbelief. They had called for help, but they hadn't expected this. Humans from a distant, dangerous planet willing to face the chaos head-on. The team did not hesitate. They landed near a partially collapsed city and stepped out into the ruined streets. The ground was uneven, filled with debris and hazards. Yet the humans moved with confidence. They began assessing the damage, checking for survivors, and finding ways to stabilize buildings and critical systems. Every action was deliberate, precise, but also filled with courage that the Alarians had never seen before. The aliens observed in silence. Some whispered among themselves, shocked that being so different could act so fearlessly. They had anticipated careful, cautious assistance. They had expected technology that could reach across space and fix problems from a distance. They did not expect humans, with their rugged suits and improvised tools, running toward danger instead of away from it. A few children appeared from the shadows, curious and cautious. They watched the humans, their wide eyes reflecting both fear and fascination. A small human medic knelt down, showing a gentle hand, speaking softly even though the alien language was foreign. Slowly, the children inched closer, drawn by the humans' fearlessness and calm assurance. As night fell on Alarian, the humans set up temporary shelters and medical stations. Fires were lit carefully to provide warmth, and the team worked tirelessly, planning for the next day. For the first time in months, the planet seemed to breathe a little easier. The Alarians still did not fully understand these visitors, but a seed of hope had been planted. The signal that had called humanity across the galaxy was not just being answered, it was being honored. And for the humans, this was just the beginning. They knew the challenges ahead would be immense, that danger would lurk in every corner of the planet. But danger had never stopped them before. Humanity survived where others perished. They adapted, they endured, and they advanced. As the stars twinkled above the ruined city, the humans prepared for the work ahead. They were far from home in a world they barely understood, facing a civilization on the brink. But their presence alone brought something new, a reminder that when no one else dared to come, humans would. The next morning, the sun rose over the battered surface of Ilarion, casting long shadows across the crumbling cities. The humans woke early, ready to begin their work. Their first task was to find survivors and ensure the city's damaged systems were stable. It wasn't just about repairing buildings or fixing machines, it was about saving lives. The humans knew that even small actions could make a big difference in a place so fragile. The streets were eerily quiet. Smoke still curled from collapsed buildings and dust hung in the air like a heavy fog. The humans moved carefully but steadily, scanning the area for signs of life. They were prepared for danger but also for discovery. Every corner could hold a child hiding from fear, a family trapped under rubble, or a creature unfamiliar to them. It wasn't long before they found the first survivors. A small group of Alarians, weak and frightened, had gathered in what remained of a collapsed market. They watched the humans with wide eyes, unsure what to make of these strangers who had come from across the galaxy. The humans approached slowly, hands raised in peace, speaking in soft tones. They didn't yet know the alien language, but gestures and calm voices seemed to convey the right message. The humans began lifting debris, carefully freeing those trapped beneath broken beams and stones. One medic knelt beside a young Alarian child, examining scratches and bruises, offering a gentle touch that spoke more than words ever could. The child flinched at first, but then relaxed, sensing that these humans meant no harm. Meanwhile, engineers among the team assessed the city's infrastructure. Water pipelines had collapsed and electricity was intermittent at best. Systems that had been relied on for decades were failing in hours. The humans worked in pairs, devising simple solutions using the tools they had brought. They repaired small circuits, cleared debris from blocked channels, and made temporary bridges over broken streets. Their work was not elegant or sophisticated by alien standards, but it was effective. Every repair restored hope, even if only a little. The Alarians, watching quietly, could not understand how the humans were able to act so decisively. On their planet, even small risks were avoided. People calculated outcomes endlessly before taking any action. But these humans seemed fearless. They ran toward problems, not away from them. They improvised solutions when nothing existed to guide them. Slowly, curiosity replaced fear, and the aliens began to observe more closely. By midday, the humans had set up a temporary base in the center of the city. It was little more than a cluster of tents and portable shelters, but it provided a safe space for both humans and Ilarians. Medics treated injuries, engineers organized supplies, and the explorers scouted nearby areas for further damage. The humans worked tirelessly, not expecting thanks, not expecting recognition, They were there because someone needed help. And that was enough. A young Alarian scientist, fascinated by the humans, began to follow them from a distance. They watched as the humans repaired a collapsed bridge, their movements precise yet unhurried, balancing risk and care. The aliens had never seen such combination of bravery and intelligence before. To them it seemed almost reckless, yet it worked. The humans' actions challenged everything the Alarians believed about strength, skill, and problem-solving. As the day passed, the humans encountered new challenges. A partially collapsed building threatened to fall completely, blocking access to a critical water supply. Without hesitation, the team climbed the unstable structure using ropes and makeshift supports to secure it. Dust and debris fell around them, but they pressed on, knowing that the water was vital for the survival of the remaining population. The Alarians gasped from a safe distance, both terrified and impressed. By evening, the humans had accomplished what had seemed impossible. Critical areas were stabilized, injured survivors had been treated, and essential supplies were organized for distribution. The aliens were beginning to trust them. They had seen not just the humans' strength, but their willingness to risk everything for others. It was a concept unfamiliar to the Alarians. Danger had always been something to avoid, but the humans faced it head-on, with calm determination. Despite the progress, the humans did not celebrate. They were aware that this was only the beginning. The planet was vast and many regions were still in peril. Entire cities were at risk of collapse, and more survivors might be trapped in places the team had not yet reached. They planned for the next day, coordinating who would go where, which tools would be needed, and how to maintain safety while acting quickly. Efficiency was critical, but so was care. Every decision could save or endanger lives. As night fell, a quiet sense of awe settled over the Alarians. They gathered near the humans' temporary base, whispering to each other in their native language. The young scientist, who had been observing closely all day, approached the team cautiously. The humans greeted them with gentle smiles and hand gestures, inviting them to observe more closely. Slowly, the alien began to understand what the humans were doing. Their methods were simple, practical, and often dangerous, but they worked because the humans trusted themselves and each other. The humans, meanwhile, were aware of the eyes upon them. They knew the Alarians were studying every movement, learning from the approach they had taken. Some humans felt a quiet pride, not in themselves, but in the fact that their actions might inspire hope, courage, and resilience in a civilization that had nearly lost everything. Hope, they knew, was as important as any tool or medicine. Without it, recovery would be impossible. That night, under the dim light of fires and portable lamps, the humans gathered briefly to plan the next day. Some checked supplies, others reviewed maps of the city, and a few simply rested, exhausted from the physical and emotional demands of the day. The planet outside remained dangerous, full of uncertainty and potential disaster. Yet within their small encampment, there was a sense of purpose, a quiet determination to continue no matter what. In the early hours, when the rest of the city slept uneasily, the young Alarian scientist returned to the humans' base carrying sketches and notes. They wanted to understand more, to learn how these beings from a distant world approached problems so differently. The humans welcomed the curiosity, showing how they used basic tools, careful observation, and teamwork to solve issues that technology alone could not fix. The alien listened intently, absorbing every detail. For the first time, they realized that survival was not just about avoiding danger. It was about meeting it with courage, adaptability, and intelligence. Over the next few days, the humans continued their work. They ventured into dangerous zones where collapsed buildings threatened to block critical pathways, repaired unstable structures with improvised methods, and treated the sick and injured with limited resources. Each success was small but meaningful, and each failure taught them something new. The Alarians watched, slowly shedding their fear and skepticism. The humans were not invaders or saviors in the traditional sense. They were partners in survival, teaching a civilization on the brink how to face challenges head-on. Word of the humans' presence spread across nearby settlements. Small groups of survivors began to leave hiding places, coming forward to receive aid, to witness the courage of beings from a distant planet. The humans welcomed them all, treating each person with respect and care. They didn't separate themselves by culture, status, or species. They acted with one goal: to help wherever they could. As the humans prepared for another day of work, the planet seemed to respond. Streets once silent now held cautious movement. Children played in small safe zones, laughter replacing the silence of fear even if only briefly. Adults worked alongside the humans, learning to repair, rebuild, and protect themselves. The humans had not just brought medicine, tools, and expertise, they had brought hope. By the end of the week, a remarkable change had begun. Areas once thought impossible to save were now stable. Survivors were more confident, willing to step out of hiding and take small risks to rebuild their homes. The humans had shown them that danger could be met with courage, that even in a world scarred by disaster, life could continue and even flourish. The humans themselves were weary, but undeterred. They had traveled across the galaxy, faced unfamiliar hazards, and worked tirelessly under extreme conditions. Yet they never complained. For them, this was normal. Humanity's strength had always been in endurance, in facing challenges with determination and resourcefulness. They adapted, they learned, and they acted, not because they had to, but because it was who they were. As the sun set over Alarion once more, painting the skies in hues of orange and red, the humans gathered to rest, to prepare for the challenges ahead. They knew the planet was vast, the work far from over, but the small victories of the past days had proven something important, not just to the Alarians but to themselves. Humanity's presence had a purpose beyond technology or tools. It was in the courage to face what others could not, the willingness to act when no one else dared, and the quiet strength to inspire hope in those who had nearly lost it. For the Alarians, the world had changed. They had called for help, expecting distant, careful, and possibly timid assistance. Instead, they had received humans, Deathworlders, some would call them, who acted with boldness, intelligence, and compassion. Slowly, the seeds of trust and admiration. The following morning on Alarion was colder than expected. The thin sunlight barely broke through the thick clouds that hung over the city. Dust and smoke still lingered from the previous day's destruction, and the humans knew their work had only just begun. The survivors were fragile, both in body and spirit, and the planet itself seemed determined to make every step difficult. The humans split into teams, each responsible for different areas of the city. One group focused on water systems, repairing broken pipelines and clearing blocked channels. Another team worked on restoring energy, making temporary generators operational and ensuring that hospitals and shelters had electricity. A third team ventured further into unstable districts, rescuing those trapped in buildings that were close to collapse. As the humans moved through the ruined streets, they drew the attention of more Alarians. Families peeked from behind walls, children clung to parents, and elders watched cautiously. The humans spoke in soft tones, their gestures slow and deliberate, showing that they came without harm. Slowly, the Alarians began to understand that these strangers from a distant world had come to help, not to judge or conquer. The humans' work was not easy. Every step brought new challenges. A partially collapsed tower threatened to block the main road, trapping survivors and cutting off essential supplies. Without hesitation, a group of humans climbed the unstable structure, carefully balancing on beams that could break at any moment. With ropes, pulleys, and sheer determination, they secured the building long enough to allow people to escape. The Alarians watched in awe, unable to comprehend the fearlessness that allowed humans to walk directly into danger. Meanwhile, medics moved through the streets, tending to injuries both minor and severe. Many Alarians had gone days without proper care, and even small wounds had become infected. The humans worked quickly but gently, cleaning cuts, bandaging burns, and calming the frightened. They did not rush the patients even when time was critical, because they understood that fear could be as dangerous as injury. The young Alarian scientist continued to follow the humans, taking notes and observing every action. They had never seen anything like it. The humans did not rely on advanced technology alone. They relied on instinct, improvisation, and cooperation. They faced situations that the aliens would have avoided entirely. Yet somehow, the humans succeeded. Slowly, the scientist began to realize that survival was not about avoiding risk. It was about understanding it, controlling it, and acting decisively. In one district, the team encountered a collapsed bridge that connected two sections of the city. Without it, supplies and medical aid could not reach people on the other side. The humans assessed the situation carefully. There was no proper equipment to rebuild it, only scraps of metal, ropes, and planks. Yet within hours, they constructed a temporary bridge strong enough to carry people and essential goods. The Alarians were amazed. In their minds, such a task would have required months of planning and precise machinery. Yet these humans accomplished it with nothing but ingenuity and courage. The survivors began to show signs of change as well. At first, they had been hesitant, hiding behind walls and watching from a distance. But seeing the humans act without fear, constantly helping those in need, inspired them. Some started assisting in small ways, carrying supplies, cleaning debris, or guiding the humans through dangerous areas. The humans welcomed every effort, encouraging cooperation and showing patience even when mistakes were made. As the day wore on, the humans faced another challenge. A fire had broken out in one of the residential districts, likely caused by damaged electrical lines. Smoke rose high into the sky and the flames threatened to spread. Without hesitation, the humans organized a response. Using hoses, makeshift water containers, and coordinated effort, they contained the fire before it could consume more homes. Every moment was tense, every action critical. When the fire was finally under control, the humans did not celebrate. They moved immediately to ensure everyone was safe and to prevent any further damage. The Alarians were beginning to understand something profound. These humans were not just strong or skilled. They were relentless in their determination to help others, even at great personal risk. Fear did not stop them. Exhaustion did not stop them. Chaos did not stop them. The humans seemed to thrive in adversity, finding solutions where others saw only danger. By evening, the humans had established multiple safe zones throughout the city. Temporary shelters were filled with survivors, medical care was ongoing, and basic utilities were functioning better than before. The Alarians began to trust them, allowing more direct interaction. Children followed the humans with curiosity, learning how to carry supplies or apply basic first aid. Adults asked questions, seeking to understand the methods and reasoning behind each action. The humans took a moment to rest, but even in their downtime, they shared knowledge with the Alarians. They taught simple techniques to stabilize structures, purify water, and prevent injuries. It was not just about saving lives in the moment. It was about giving the Alarians the tools to survive on their own, long after the humans left. This approach, rooted in both compassion and practicality, impressed the alien scientists deeply. Night fell, bringing a quiet stillness over the city. Fires flickered in the distance, and the humans gathered around their temporary base to discuss plans for the next day. Despite the successes, they knew the challenges ahead were far greater. Entire districts remained unstable, resources were limited, and many survivors still needed assistance. Yet the humans did not waver. Their focus was unwavering, their purpose clear. They had come to help, and they would continue until every life that could be saved was saved. As the humans rested, the young Alarian scientist stayed nearby, reflecting on what they had witnessed. They realized that the human strength was not in their technology. Though it was advanced, it was in their mindset. They acted without fear, adapted quickly to new situations, and worked tirelessly for the benefit of others. These qualities were alien to the Alarians, whose society often prioritized caution and self-preservation above all else. Watching the humans, the scientists began to see a new way of thinking, one that embraced risk, action, and responsibility in equal measure. The following days continued in a similar rhythm. Humans moved tirelessly through the city, rescuing survivors, stabilizing structures, and restoring critical systems. The Alarians, once passive observers, became active participants. Under the humans' guidance, they learned to move confidently in dangerous environments, to make decisions quickly, and to act with courage even when outcomes were uncertain. The planet itself seemed to respond to this newfound energy. Streets once empty began to hum with activity, and even small signs of life, like plants surviving in cracks or animals returning, became sources of hope. One particularly challenging mission took the humans to a collapsed tunnel beneath the city. Survivors were trapped, and the structure was unstable, threatening to collapse further at any moment. The humans coordinated carefully, using ropes, supports, and sheer teamwork to reach those inside. The trapped individuals were weak and frightened, but the humans' calm and steady guidance reassured them. One by one, they were brought to safety. The Alarians, watching this rescue, whispered in awe among themselves. They had never seen courage so deliberate, so focused and so selfless. By the end of the week, the humans had not only stabilized large portions of the city, but also begun to transform the mindset of the survivors. The Ilarians were learning resilience, resourcefulness, and the importance of action. They realized that survival was not about waiting for help, but about taking responsibility, using whatever tools and knowledge were available, and working together to overcome challenges. As the humans prepared for another night of rest, the young scientist approached once more. They asked questions about the humans' thought process, their decision-making, and their approach to risk. The humans answered patiently, demonstrating methods, explaining reasoning, and showing examples. Through these interactions, the scientist began to understand not just the how but the why behind humanity's actions. It was a lesson that would stay with them long after the humans departed. The humans knew their work on Ilarion was far from over. There were still many challenges ahead, and the planet itself remained unpredictable and dangerous. Yet they also understood that their presence had already made a profound difference. The survivors were not just living, they were learning, adapting, and beginning to hope. And that hope, the humans knew, was just as important as any physical repair or rescue. As the night deepened, the humans rested briefly, listening to the quiet sounds of a recovering city. Fires flickered in safe zones, wind whispered through broken streets, and the Ilarians slept cautiously, comforted by the humans' presence. It was a fragile peace, but it was peace nonetheless, and in the darkness the humans prepared mentally for the work that lay ahead, knowing that every action, every decision, and every moment of courage would matter in the days to come. By the time the stars were high in the sky, one thing was clear. Ilarion had been given more than help. It had been given an example, a living lesson in resilience, courage, and the power of humans who faced danger without hesitation. The Ilarians would remember this. The morning on Ilarion arrived with a heavy stillness. The sky was streaked with gray clouds, and the wind carried dust and the faint smell of smoke. The humans had already begun preparing for the day, checking equipment, reviewing maps of the city, and coordinating with the survivors who had slowly started to trust them. Every movement was purposeful, every decision thoughtful, because the world around them remained fragile and unpredictable. The humans knew that some areas of the city were more dangerous than others. Buildings that had survived so far were only held together by precarious beams, and debris littered the streets like hidden traps. Their first mission that morning was to reach the old university district, a place that once held knowledge, research, and innovation, but now lay in ruins. Reports suggested that survivors, including scientists and students, were trapped in underground labs, unable to escape because the tunnels had partially collapsed. They moved as a team, walking carefully through the broken streets. Some humans carried tools to remove rubble, while others monitored the stability of nearby structures. They spoke softly to the survivors they found along the way, offering reassurance and guiding them toward safety. Even the smallest gesture, like extending a hand or offering a drink of water, seemed to comfort the Ilarians who had been living in fear for so long. Reaching the university district was a challenge. The main entrance had collapsed entirely, leaving only a narrow, unstable pathway. Dust and debris threatened to fall at any moment. Without hesitation, the humans began to clear the path. One team worked on removing rocks and rubble, another reinforced weak walls with planks and ropes, and a small group entered the underground tunnels to locate the trapped survivors. Their movements were deliberate and coordinated, each action balancing safety with urgency. Inside the tunnels, the situation was even worse. The air was thick with dust, and the faint echoes of the survivors' voices guided the humans forward. The tunnels were narrow, uneven, and partially blocked by fallen beams. The humans used portable lights to illuminate the path, signaling to each other carefully as they moved. They encountered weak flooring and precarious walls, but they adapted, using their skills and experience to navigate through danger. When they finally reached the trapped survivors, it was clear how desperate the situation had become. The individuals inside the tunnels were frightened, hungry, and exhausted. Some were injured, unable to move without help. The humans immediately assessed the conditions, treating minor injuries and stabilizing those who were more severely hurt. They reassured the survivors with calm voices and gentle gestures, showing that help had arrived and that they were safe for the first time in days. The evacuation was slow, but methodical. Humans carried those who could not walk, guided the others along safe paths, and continually checked the stability of the tunnel walls. Every step required focus, as a single mistake could cause a collapse. Despite the danger, there was no hesitation. Humans thrived under pressure, using both ingenuity and teamwork to succeed where others might have failed. The Alarians observed in awe, their fear slowly transforming into admiration and trust. Once the survivors were safely above ground, the humans provided them with water, food, and medical attention. They created temporary shelters nearby and organized a system to rotate care and protection among the rescued individuals. Even in the midst of chaos, the humans thought ahead, planning for the next steps and anticipating future dangers. The Alarians began to understand that these visitors were not just rescuers, they were teachers, leaders, and examples of resilience in the face of disaster. Meanwhile, engineers among the humans focused on restoring essential systems in the university district. Water pipes had burst, electrical lines were damaged, and communication systems were down. Using simple tools, makeshift circuits, and portable energy sources, they managed to restore limited power and water supply. The solutions were practical, not elegant, but they worked. Every repair made life safer and more manageable for the survivors, and it demonstrated the humans' ability to adapt to environments that were hostile and unpredictable. As the day progressed, more Alarians joined the humans in their work. At first they watched from a distance, unsure of how to act or what to do. Slowly they began to assist, carrying supplies, holding supports, or guiding the humans through dangerous areas. The humans encouraged this participation, teaching them basic safety and repair techniques. Each success strengthened the survivors' confidence, showing them that even in a devastated world, they could take action to improve their situation. In one particularly challenging moment, a section of the university's main lecture hall began to collapse. The roof, weakened by previous earthquakes and storms, threatened to fall onto the temporary shelters below. Without hesitation, the humans sprang into action. They coordinated quickly, using ropes, beams, and pulleys to stabilize the roof long enough for everyone to evacuate safely. Dust and debris rained down around them, but they pressed on, calm and focused, ensuring that no lives were lost. The Alarians watched silently, unable to comprehend the bravery and precision of the humans who willingly placed themselves in harm's way. By evening, the humans had completed multiple missions across the city. Critical structures were stabilized, survivors were safe, and temporary systems for water, power, and shelter were in place. The Alarians began to see a pattern in the humans' behavior: courage, adaptability, teamwork, and selflessness. These traits, combined with their intelligence, allowed humans to succeed in situations where others might have hesitated or failed. Slowly, trust and admiration began to replace fear and skepticism. As night fell, the humans gathered to review their progress and plan for the next day. They discussed areas still at risk, supplies that needed replenishment, and the survivors' immediate needs. Even in moments of rest, they were alert, aware that the planet remained unpredictable and dangerous. They knew that every action they took could have long-term consequences for the survivors and for the city's recovery. The young Alarian scientists stayed close to the humans, asking questions and observing their methods. They had never seen anything like this: beings who could act decisively under pressure, improvise solutions with limited resources, and maintain calm in the face of chaos. Slowly, they began to understand that human strength was not in technology alone, but in mindset. Courage, adaptability, and cooperation allowed humans to face challenges that others might have avoided entirely. Over the next few days, the humans expanded their operations. They moved into other districts, rescuing survivors, reinforcing buildings, and restoring basic utilities. Each day brought new challenges: collapsed structures, blocked roads, fires, and injured individuals. But the humans approached each problem with the same calm determination. Their teamwork, patience, and resilience set an example for the Alarians, showing that even in the most dire situations, solutions were possible. The survivors began to change as well. Fear gave way to action. Hesitation turned into initiative. People who had been paralyzed by despair now helped carry supplies, repair structures, and assist the injured. The humans encouraged this, guiding the Alarians and praising their efforts. Slowly, the planet's population began to regain a sense of agency, realizing that they could shape their own future with courage, knowledge, and cooperation. By the end of the week, large parts of the city were stabilized. Safe zones were established, survivors were organized into working teams, and essential systems were partially restored. The humans had accomplished remarkable progress, but they did not see it as the end. They knew the planet was vast and countless other challenges awaited. Yet they also knew that they had left a lasting impact, a population inspired by resilience, a civilization beginning to rebuild, and a lesson in courage and adaptability that would endure long after they were gone. As the humans prepared to rest for the night, the city seemed to breathe a little easier. Fires in safe zones flickered softly, and the wind carried less dust and debris. The Alarians moved cautiously but confidently through the streets, practicing skills they had learned from the humans. For the first time in weeks, there was a sense of order and hope. The humans gathered briefly, reflecting on the day's work. They were tired, physically and mentally, but their purpose gave them energy. Each life saved, each structure stabilized, and each lesson taught was a victory. They did not need recognition or praise. Their mission was clear, and the results spoke for themselves. That night, under the dim light of the stars, the humans rested, aware that tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities. The survivors, now more confident and capable, slept nearby, knowing they were not alone. And the young Alarian scientist, who had followed them tirelessly, finally understood the humans' true strength. It was not in their technology, their numbers, or even their knowledge. It was in their courage, their adaptability, and their unwavering commitment to help others. No matter the danger, Alarian had begun to change. It was still a world of danger, uncertainty, and destruction, but it was also a world of hope, courage, and resilience. And at the center of this transformation were the humans, whose presence had begun to inspire an entire civilization to rise from despair and take control of its own future. The following morning on Alarian, the air was calm but tense. The humans had already started their work before sunrise, checking the condition of the city and preparing for the tasks ahead. Each day brought new challenges, and the planet still held dangers that could appear without warning. Rocks could fall from weakened cliffs, old buildings could collapse, and hidden fires could ignite at any moment. But the humans had learned to anticipate, adapt, and act quickly, and the Alarians had begun to watch, learn, and sometimes follow their example. The first mission that day took the humans to a district known as the industrial sector. Factories and workshops had once been the heart of the city, producing goods and technology that supported life on Alarian. Now many buildings were damaged, with twisted metal, collapsed roofs, and broken machinery scattered across the streets. The humans needed to stabilize the area, ensure it was safe, and check for any survivors who might have taken shelter there. Walking through the industrial district, the humans moved carefully but efficiently. They assessed the risks as they went, identifying which structures were most unstable and which areas could still support safe movement. Tools and supplies were carried with precision, and the team coordinated constantly, signaling with hand gestures and quiet shouts to communicate in the noisy, unstable environment. It wasn't long before they found a group of survivors hiding inside a collapsed warehouse. They were frightened and weak, some with injuries, others shaken by the chaos they had endured. The humans approached slowly, speaking in calm tones and using gentle gestures to show they came to help. The survivors hesitated, unsure if these strangers could be trusted. But the humans' calm confidence and clear purpose quickly put them at ease. Medics worked first, tending to injuries with careful hands. Cuts were cleaned and bandaged, bruises treated, and those who were too weak to stand were lifted and supported. The humans didn't rush, understanding that patience was often just as important as speed. They explained every action, showing the survivors how to care for themselves and each other, building trust and encouraging participation. Meanwhile, other team members focused on stabilizing the building itself. Beams that were at risk of collapse were reinforced with ropes and planks. Holes in the walls and ceilings were temporarily covered to prevent further falling debris. Every action required coordination, skill, and careful judgment. The humans worked quickly but thoughtfully, balancing the need for speed with the need for safety. The young Alarian scientist continued to observe the humans, increasingly amazed by their approach. They noticed that the humans did not rely solely on tools or advanced technology. They relied on judgment, teamwork, and courage. Each decision was informed by experience, observation, and quick thinking. The humans did not avoid risk, but they respected it, understanding the dangers while finding ways to overcome them. Slowly, the scientist began to understand that this combination of fearlessness and thoughtfulness was the core of human strength. After securing the building and rescuing the survivors, the humans moved on to the next challenge, restoring essential energy systems in the district. Many power lines had collapsed and critical machines could no longer operate. The humans set to work, improvising connections, using portable generators, and rerouting power where possible. Their solutions were simple, practical, and effective. While the Alarians might have expected advanced alien technology to solve the problem, the humans relied on ingenuity, teamwork, and persistence, and it worked. As the day went on, more Alarians began to participate. At first, they observed from a safe distance, unsure how to help. Gradually, they began to assist, carrying materials, reinforcing structures, or guiding the humans through hazardous areas. The humans encouraged participation, teaching techniques and explaining why each action mattered. With every task completed, the Alarians gained confidence, learning that even small efforts could make a significant difference. By midday, the humans had made remarkable progress. The industrial district was stabilized, critical systems were partially restored, and survivors were safe and beginning to recover. The humans paused briefly to plan the next steps. They discussed which areas required the most urgent attention, coordinated supplies and tools, and ensured that every team member was aware of their responsibilities. Even in moments of rest, they remained alert and ready to respond to any sudden dangers. In the afternoon, a new challenge arose. A section of the district that had seemed stable suddenly shifted, causing a cascade of falling debris. Without hesitation, the humans sprang into action. They guided the survivors to safety, reinforced the affected structures, and worked to clear the rubble. The Alarians watched in astonishment, unable to comprehend how these humans could act so decisively under pressure. The humans moved with a combination of strength, skill, and calmness that seemed almost impossible to replicate. Throughout the day, the humans continued to teach the survivors valuable skills. They demonstrated how to stabilize buildings using simple materials, how to purify water with limited resources, and how to improvise tools to solve problems. The survivors learned quickly, motivated by both necessity and the humans' example. Slowly, the city began to feel less like a place of fear, and more like a place where action, courage, and cooperation could make a real difference. As evening approached, the humans focused on another critical task, securing food and water supplies. Many stores and warehouses had been damaged, and survivors had limited access to essentials. The humans organized collections, carefully distributing rations and ensuring that everyone had enough to eat. They also taught the Alarians how to identify safe food and water sources, how to ration supplies effectively, and how to prepare meals under difficult conditions. These lessons were not just practical, they were empowering, showing the survivors that they could take control of their own survival. By nightfall, the industrial district was transformed. It was still far from perfect, but it was safe, functional, and filled with survivors who had begun to regain confidence. The humans gathered briefly, reviewing the day's work and planning for the challenges ahead. They knew that other districts required attention, that hazards remained, and that the planet itself could change without warning. Yet despite the exhaustion, there was a sense of accomplishment and purpose. The young Alarian scientist reflected on the progress they had witnessed. The humans had not only saved lives, they had inspired a civilization to act, to learn, and to believe in its own resilience. The Alarians had begun to see that survival was not about waiting for help or avoiding danger. It was about taking responsibility, using available resources, and working together. The humans had modeled this approach through action, showing that courage and determination could overcome even the most difficult challenges. During the night, fires burned in safe zones, providing light and warmth. Survivors moved cautiously but confidently, practicing the skills they had learned from the humans. The city, though still scarred and damaged, began to feel like a place of life rather than only destruction. The humans rested briefly, aware that tomorrow would bring new obstacles, but confident that their presence had already made a lasting impact. The following morning, the humans continued their work in other districts, rescuing trapped survivors, repairing structures, and restoring essential services. Each day brought new challenges: unstable buildings, blocked roads, injured individuals. But the humans faced them all with the same calm, deliberate approach. They encouraged the Alarians to take part, gradually building a culture of cooperation, courage, and self-reliance. By the end of the week, the city had changed dramatically. Areas that had once seemed hopeless were now stabilized. Survivors were organized, trained, and confident in their abilities. The humans had not just repaired buildings or restored systems, they had transformed the mindset of an entire population. The Alarians had learned that courage, teamwork, and adaptability could overcome even the most dire situations. As the humans prepared to rest for the night, the city seemed to breathe easier. Fires flickered softly and the wind carried less dust. Survivors moved through the streets, practicing skills they had learned and sharing what they knew with others. The young Alarian scientists stayed close to the humans, asking questions and reflecting on the lessons they had witnessed. Slowly, they began to understand that the humans' true strength lay not in their tools or numbers, but in their mindset, courage, adaptability, and an unwavering commitment to help others. Alarian had begun to change. The planet was still dangerous and unpredictable, but the people had hope. They had learned that action, cooperation, and courage could make a difference even in the face of overwhelming challenges. And at the center of this transformation were the humans, whose presence had inspired an entire civilization to rise from despair and take control of its own future. The humans knew their work was not finished. Other areas of the city remained unstable, and countless challenges awaited. But they also knew that they had already left a lasting impact. Survivors were no longer passive or paralyzed by fear. They were learning, acting, and beginning to believe in their own abilities. As night fell, the humans rested briefly, listening to the quiet sounds of a city slowly recovering. Fires flickered in safe zones. The morning on Alarian began with a quiet determination. The humans had spent weeks stabilizing the city, rescuing survivors and teaching the Alarians how to face challenges with courage and skill. But there was still more to do. Entire districts remained unstable, supplies were limited, and many survivors were still too weak to fully care for themselves. The humans knew that their work was far from over, but each step forward brought the planet closer to recovery. The first task of the day was to secure the central district. This area had once been the heart of Alarian's culture and governance, but now it was mostly rubble. Buildings had collapsed, roads were broken, and critical systems were down. The humans approached with caution, but their presence inspired hope. Survivors gathered around, watching closely as the humans assessed the damage and organized a plan. Engineers led the effort, identifying which buildings could be stabilized and which needed complete reinforcement. Teams worked methodically, using ropes, beams, and portable tools to strengthen walls and ceilings. The humans moved with precision, understanding that even small mistakes could lead to disaster. Medics assisted survivors nearby, providing care and encouragement, while other humans coordinated supplies and ensured that everyone knew their role. As the work progressed, a sudden tremor shook the district. Dust and debris rained down, and some of the weaker structures began to sway. Without hesitation, the humans leapt into action. They guided survivors to safe zones, reinforced unstable buildings, and secured critical pathways. The Alarians, who had been observing, were struck by the humans' courage and decisiveness. Where others might have frozen in fear, the humans acted quickly, calmly, and effectively. Once the immediate danger passed, the humans continued their work. They set up temporary shelters, restored water and energy systems, and ensured that survivors had access to food and medical care. Each action was deliberate, focused, and guided by a deep understanding of both immediate needs and long-term sustainability. The humans did not act for recognition. They acted because someone needed help, and they were willing to step forward when no one else would. The young Alarian scientist had been observing the humans closely throughout the day. They had witnessed countless acts of bravery, ingenuity, and compassion, and began to understand the true nature of human strength. It was not just in their ability to endure physical challenges, but in their mindset, the courage to face danger, the ability to adapt, and the commitment to act for the good of others, even when the odds were against them. Slowly, the scientists began to see how these qualities could transform an entire civilization. In the afternoon, the humans faced one of their most challenging missions yet. A large section of the central district, including several critical buildings, was on the verge of collapse. It threatened both the survivors living nearby and the temporary shelters that had been set up. The humans quickly coordinated a plan. Teams worked together, reinforcing walls, clearing debris, and creating safe passages for the survivors. Every action required careful judgment, teamwork, and courage, but the humans moved with steady determination. The survivors themselves began to participate more actively. Encouraged by the humans, they carried supplies, helped stabilize structures, and assisted those who were injured. Slowly, fear was replaced with confidence. The Ilarians were beginning to understand that survival required action, cooperation, and resilience, and that they could achieve these qualities themselves with guidance and practice. By late afternoon, the central district was significantly more stable. Critical buildings were reinforced, survivors had safe access to shelters and supplies, and systems for water and energy were functioning better than before. The humans paused briefly, taking stock of their progress and planning the next steps. Despite exhaustion, there was a quiet sense of accomplishment. Each life saved, each structure stabilized, and each lesson taught was a step toward the planet's recovery. The day was not yet over, however. Reports came in of a small group of survivors trapped in a collapsed tower on the outskirts of the district. The humans did not hesitate. They gathered the necessary tools, coordinated their teams, and made their way to the site. The tower was unstable, with debris hanging precariously and the risk of further collapse high. The rescue required careful planning and precise execution. Some humans climbed the unstable structure to reach the trapped survivors, while others reinforced weak beams from the outside. Ropes, pulleys, and makeshift supports were used to lift debris and create a safe path. The trapped individuals were frightened, some injured and others in shock, but the humans moved with calm assurance, guiding them through every step of the process. After hours of careful work, the last survivor was brought to safety. The humans had faced danger directly, adapting to every challenge, and no one was lost. The Ilarians watching could hardly believe what they had seen. Courage, skill, and calm determination had turned a potentially fatal situation into a success. Slowly, whispers of admiration and awe spread among the survivors. Humans were not only rescuers, they were teachers, leaders, and examples of what it meant to face the impossible with courage. By evening, the humans and Ilarians gathered at a central safe zone. Fires burned softly, providing light and warmth. Survivors shared food and water, and the humans provided guidance and reassurance. The city, though still scarred, felt alive again. Streets that had been silent for weeks were filled with cautious movement, and a sense of order and hope began to take hold. The young Ilarian scientist, who had followed the humans from the beginning, finally approached them directly. They asked questions about decision-making, teamwork, and the philosophy behind human actions. The humans explained patiently, showing that their strength came from more than tools or training. It came from mindset. Courage, adaptability, cooperation, and a commitment to help others were what made humans capable of facing even the most dangerous situations. The scientist listened intently, realizing that these lessons could change Ilarian forever. The humans spent the rest of the night organizing plans for long-term recovery. Temporary shelters would become more permanent, basic systems would continue to be repaired, and survivors would gradually take on more responsibilities themselves. The humans had not come to dominate or control. They had come to teach, assist, and inspire. Their presence had already transformed a civilization that had been on the brink of despair into a population learning to act with courage and confidence. By the following morning, the city had taken on a new energy. Survivors moved with purpose, applying the skills they had learned from the humans. Small groups worked together to repair streets, stabilize buildings, and distribute supplies. The humans supervised, provided guidance, and continued to teach, but they also allowed the Ilarians to take initiative. Slowly, the planet was becoming a place where people could survive, and even thrive, through their own efforts. Throughout the day, the humans faced minor challenges, unstable structures, hidden debris, and medical emergencies, but they addressed each problem calmly and efficiently. The Ilarians were no longer passive observers. They were active participants, learning by doing and gaining confidence with every action. The humans had not just saved lives, they had instilled the knowledge, courage, and mindset that could sustain the population long after they were gone. By evening, the city was transformed. Safe zones were established. Survivors were organized into working groups and essential systems were functional. The humans had accomplished something extraordinary. They had not only helped a civilization survive, they had inspired it to rebuild, adapt, and grow stronger. As the humans prepared to leave Valerian, the survivors gathered to thank them. Words were spoken, gestures exchanged, and gratitude expressed in countless ways. But the humans did not see themselves as heroes. They had simply done what they believed was right, stepping into danger, helping others, and teaching through action. For them, this was normal. For the Alarians, it was nothing short of transformative. The young Alarian scientist approached the humans one last time. They expressed a profound realization that courage, adaptability, and a willingness to act in the face of danger could change everything. The humans had shown that strength was not just physical or technological, it was moral, mental, and communal. Their presence had sparked a revolution in how the survivors thought about themselves, their society, and their future. As the humans boarded their ship to leave Valerian, the city looked different than it had when they arrived. Streets were safer, buildings were stabilized, and survivors were stronger and more confident. Fires flickered in safe zones. Children played cautiously, and adults worked together to maintain and improve their environment. The humans had come expecting to help, but they had given more than they realized. They had given hope, courage, and the example of what it meant to face danger with determination and heart. The ship lifted off, leaving Valerian behind. From above, the humans could see the city, still scarred but alive. Survivors moved purposefully, working together and rebuilding what had been lost. The humans knew their mission had made a difference, not just in saving lives but in teaching a civilization to believe in itself. As the ship entered space, the humans looked toward the stars. Valerian would continue to face